From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Two Hungarian lawmakers have been ejected from the headquarters of the country's public broadcaster after trying to read out a petition against a new labor law. They were amongst a number of members of parliament who protested against right-wing Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's policies by staying in the television station overnight. They are demanding the repeal of the new labor law. They want an independent media and for Hungary to join the European Union Prosecutor's Office. The new legislation has been labeled as a slave law. More demonstrations are expected.
The FtS climb inside here in different waves. It seems like in Hungary the normal entrance to the building of a public institution doesn't exist anymore. All entrances have been closed, so this is the only way for FtS to get into an institution which is financed by the Hungarian taxpayers.
And on Sunday, thousands of Hungarians protested for the sixth time against their prime minister in Budapest and the new labor law. This new law allows employers to ask for up to 400 hours overtime work per year. Civil rights organizations said this new law may be last of the democratic institutions to be destroyed since Viktor Orbán took office in 2010. Earlier, we spoke with Balázs Szeko, who is an independent journalist from Hungary. He gave us some insights on the ongoing protests in Hungary.
No, these protests are already bigger than just a slave law. These protests have become a huge anti-government movement, and this movement wants at least a 5-point petition to be read out in the state-owned television headquarters. And this is exactly what the MPs of the opposition tried to do last night. And I would like to highlight the 5 points. So repeal the slave law, that's number 1. Number 2 is less overtime hours for the police. Number 3, independent judiciary. Number 4 is joining the European Public Prosecutor's Office. And number 5 is free media. This scale is very diverse. It goes from the left-wing anarchists over socialists, over social democrats, liberals, conservatives to the right wing. It's a bit bizarre to see all these forces marching together for democracy, but this is the Hungarian reality. And they are united in one position, and the position is to be against FtS, to be against the government. FtS is the government party.
Protests in the U.S. continue over the death of 7-year-old Guatemalan migrant Jacqueline Kahl. Activists have gathered outside the U.S. Customs and Border Protection offices in Washington, D.C. They are demanding justice and that those responsible be held accountable.
No funds for ICE, no funds for CBP, no funds for deportations, no funds for this border.
The child left Guatemala with her father and 13 other families, hoping to find a better life in the U.S. Her family is now mourning her death.
The family of Jacqueline Kahl lives with many difficulties in San Antonio de Cortez, a small village in the mountains. 420 people live in that village in the center of Guatemala. Jacqueline's father, together with other 13 families, left his village and headed towards the United States, where he hoped to find a job so he could send some more money back home.
My husband left home because of poverty, because of the extreme poverty we are living in.
Jacqueline's family says she was very happy when she knew about the trip. Her father, 29 years old, Neri Gilberto Kahl, was also excited.
Some people have asked how Jacqueline felt about the trip. She was very happy because she wanted to arrive to the United States.
However, father and daughter were arrested last 6th of December by U.S. border troops, along with a group of migrant people when they were crossing in Antelope Wheels, an international border crossing between Chihuahua in Mexico and New Mexico in the U.S. Hours after they were arrested, Jacqueline threw up several times and got fever. She was transferred to a hospital, and after 2 heart attacks, she stopped breathing. Her death has put into focus the reality of thousands of migrants and shows the consequences of migrant policies fronted by the United States and its President Donald Trump.
The UN has announced a Christmas truce in Colombia as another move to pressure the government into resuming peace negotiations. The National Liberation Army said it has listened to petitions made by communities affected by the armed conflict. They will cease fighting from December 23rd until January 3rd. Back when the government of Iván Duque took office, it called off peace negotiations that were already taking place in Cuba since 2017. Our correspondent in Bogotá, Tatiana Portela, has the details.
Today, the ELN announced a ceasefire that will begin on December 23rd, lasting until January 3rd. People in Colombia celebrated the decision and asked the government to resume peace talks, which have been paused for 5 months. President Iván Duque announced that the government will not meet with the ELN until they announce an end to all activity. Nonetheless, the Peace Commission have announced that they will insist on dialogue to achieve peace.
We thank Tatiana for that report, and the Declaration of Peasants' Rights has passed the final stage with the vote of the United Nations General Assembly. The 17-year-long process was initiated by the international peasant movement, La Vía Campesina, and was supported by numerous social movements and allied organizations. Only 8 countries voted against the resolution, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel.
The result of the vote is as follows: 121 in favor, 8 votes against, and 54 abstentions. Therefore, the resolution is approved.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. A communitarian television broadcaster from Buenos Aires has been demonstrating outside a commercial channel for being taken off the air in what is being called an act of censorship. Barricada TV, a broadcaster with no commercial intentions and with an alternative agenda, says that their signal has been blocked in violation of the law by Clarín Group. Clarín is the largest multimedia company in Argentina. Barricada is demanding the reincorporation of the TV channel established in the media law and the reinforcement of regulations. Paraguay will propose Bolivia to be fully integrated into Mercosur. The 53rd meeting of the Southern Common Market Trade Bloc is being held in Uruguay's capital, Montevideo. Representatives from Bolivia are in attendance as the country awaits authorization as a full member. Mercosur was established in 1991 to promote free trade and the fluid movement of goods, people, and currency. Currently, only Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay are full members. 600 more people have returned to Venezuela as part of the Return to the Homeland initiative implemented by the government of President Nicolás Maduro.
People continue to return to Venezuela. The most recent group coming from Ecuador and Peru. It's a relief for them to return to their home. They're carrying the same luggage with which they left.
I worked in the street, and the xenophobia was massive. I am very sad because I left many Venezuelan friends behind. I said that we should leave. You have to think about it. But if you're going to work for 14 hours, I'd prefer to work in my country and strive for my family.
Stories of exploitation and fake work offers unmask the reality of life in countries where they think they can resolve their problems.
When you're looking for a place to live, they treat you differently. If you're Venezuelan, they reject you. It happened to me on numerous occasions.
There are many cases of labor exploitation.
We are mistreated. They exploit us. We work many hours, which isn't an issue. The problem is that often they do not pay us for working all those hours.
Experts insist that there is an international campaign to politicize the flow of Venezuelan migrants in order to attack the Latin American country.
Many Venezuelans have been exposed to the violations of their rights in countries where there isn't such a strong commitment to this, as there is the Bolivarian Revolution in this country, where it's important, historical, and forceful.
11,000 Venezuelans have already returned home because of the lack of opportunities in the countries they have left for. The majority return hoping to study, work, and bring prosperity to Venezuela.
A fire broke out at an oil refinery in the north of Rio de Janeiro. It has now been brought under control by 2 squads of firefighters. Roads in the area have been closed, and black smoke was seen rising from other parts of the city. Nearby residents were told to leave their homes as a precaution. And still in Brazil, a new social media app is transforming the work of informal trash collectors. The Cataqui app allows trash collectors to register on their social media platform. Then, people in the area use the app to flag a collector to come to the residence or business to pick up trash or recyclables. Collectors are paid by the kilo for recyclable materials. The app's creators hope it helps trash collectors to earn extra cash.
There are already registered collectors in more than 191 Brazilian cities. It's a network of over 1,000 collectors who are getting calls from people who want to recycle every day.
Before the app, I almost never got calls to pick up recyclables or trash. But since the app, people start calling me to pick up recyclables and rubbish.
Football is the most played sport in Brazil, a fact that's also true with their indigenous communities. However, the new generation team of indigenous people are finding it difficult to train and accomplish their dreams of being the new wonder kid of the country.
This is the territory of the indigenous Pataxos people in the south of the state of Bahia in Brazil. It's a territory of warriors who as a community have resisted throughout centuries. Here, young people play football for their team, called New Generation. The coach is Jose Milton, a Pataxo indigenous who, like his predecessors, fights every day to keep training sessions open.
I have to fight by myself. I don't have sponsors. I don't have any help. It's only me, so what I do is to take some earnings and pay for transport to take the children to play in other places.
Despite all the difficulties they have to train, these children dream of becoming worldwide football stars. Young people, such as Duru or Pitoko, who recently passed the tests of football schools looking for new talent, know what their dreams are and value the opportunity to train.
This is both friendship and happiness. Our coach helps us. He takes us to other places with his money so we can play football.
Our pitch isn't in good condition. I would like to play at some point in a place away from here.
These young athletes are part of the million indigenous people who live in Brazil. In each training session, these children find an alternative way to develop themselves and keep their traditions as a community alive.
I'm 11 years old and I live here in a small village. I would like to have the life of a football player, and I'm a Pataxo indigenous.
My dream is to become a football player to help my family. The most important part of football for indigenous people is being together.
Pataxo indigenous people are recognized as warriors, but also as a happy people who have football as a passion in their lives.
Indigenous people are cheerful and happy with all the barriers they face and the difficulties we have with all the preconceptions that some people have about indigenous people. We are happy. We do not stop fighting. We are warriors. Football brings happiness, so it fits with us perfectly well.
These young indigenous people will have the responsibility of leading their communities in a few years. But for now, they look for union and happiness in football, as well as dreaming of becoming an indigenous idol.
The government of Puerto Rico has announced that 80% of the bridges and roads destroyed by Hurricane Irma and Maria have been repaired. Authorities say that most of the repair works are finished despite the financial crisis the government faces. The estimated cost of the work was over $350 million. Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the Caribbean island in 2017. An initiative in the heart of the Peruvian Amazon is seeking to reforest timber trees. A Spanish researcher has managed to naturally germinate threatened lumber trees, like mahogany and Peru's native chihuahuaco, on a larger scale. The project could help tackling deforestation. In the first 6 months of 2018, the Peruvian Amazon lost over 23,000 hectares of forest. Imelda Cortez, a woman who had been jailed for allegedly attempting to have an abortion, has been freed after 20 months. Imelda says she's never tried to abort her daughter, who survived her difficult birth. Protesters gathered over the weekend demanding justice for Imelda, who had been raped repeatedly by her stepfather since the age of 12. Activists say Imelda was put on trial despite the fact that she was actually the victim. Latin America is one of the most restrictive regions in the world when it comes to abortion rights. It has the highest proportion of Catholics in the world, as well as the highest rate of maternal mortality.
3 countries in Central America have a complete ban on abortion: Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, along with Haiti in the Caribbean. The Dominican Republic, Mexico, Panama, Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, and Brazil allow abortion in cases of rape, and so do Colombia and Bolivia, which also permit in the case of incest. Abortion is banned except when the life of the mother is at risk in Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, and Venezuela. Some other countries make further exceptions when there is a risk to the woman's health: Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Cuba and Uruguay have the most progressive laws in the area, with abortion being legal within certain time limits. Even after this period, abortion is still allowed in certain circumstances.
The Cuban government has said the country's economy will grow in 2019 at the same rate it did during 2018, despite tougher economic sanctions from the United States. Cuba is aiming for a 2% growth, but it has been affected by both U.S. sanctions and the aftermath of Hurricane Irma. Cuba's economy has grown by 1% in 2018, 1.8% in 2017, and 0.5% in 2016. The announcement was made after a meeting of the National Assembly's Economic Commission, also attended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel.
Aprovecho la ocasión para reconocer en este Parlamento la consagración al trabajo y la actitud.
Thousands of Cuban worshippers have paid homage to Saint Lazarus at his sanctuary in Havana. The Saint Lazarus pilgrimage is one of the most important religious events on the island. Devotees flock to the shrine and ask the saint to cure relatives' ailments. The cult of Saint Lazarus melds Afro-Cuban faith with Roman Catholic beliefs. Costa Rica has welcomed the Christmas period with a festival of light. A parade in San Jose filled the streets of the capital with music and colors. Different groups, schools, and organizations participated in the parade, which has become a tourist attraction for visitors. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Nigerian army has called for the closure of Amnesty International offices in Nigeria, accusing it of working to destabilize the country. A statement by an army spokesperson said the organization's attempts to destabilize the nation were noted through what he called fabrication of fictitious allegations of alleged human rights abuses. The Egyptian president and his Austrian counterpart have presided over the signature of a memorandum of understanding in Vienna. The agreement was signed by ministers of both countries during the visit of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Austria. Accords were made in sectors such as finance, technology, and infrastructure. El-Sisi said both presidents also discussed issues important to the region, including migration. And also in Austria, African and European leaders have met at the start of a 2-day forum. The conference aims to grow collaboration between Africa and the European Union. The Austrian government, which presides over the EU until the end of the year, organized the summit.
We officially announced that we will start a military operation on the east of the Euphrates. Now we are following it up. We discussed this with Mr. Trump and got a positive response. So we are moving forward. Until the last terrorist in the region is neutralized, we will comb through Syrian territory, inch by inch.
The U.S. military says it has killed 62 members of the Al-Shabaab group in airstrikes on the outskirts of the Somali capital, Mogadishu. In a press statement, the U.S. military's Africa Command said it carried out 4 strikes on December 15th, in which 34 people were killed, and 2 more on December 16th, which killed 28. U.S. airstrikes have increased dramatically since President Donald Trump took office and approved expanded military operations in Somalia. And at least 3 people have been killed after the roof of a Russian factory collapsed in Moscow. Another 12 people were injured in the incident. According to authorities, the collapse could have been caused by installation works on the roof and the weight of the equipment used. Germany has approved a law to include a 3rd gender option on official documents. A new intersex or diverse gender option will be included on documents such as birth certificates and driving licenses. Until now, the alternative for people who do not consider themselves male or female was to not fill the gender entry. Yellow Vest protesters have rallied in front of the Rungis International Market in Paris, the world's largest wholesale food market. Protesters were joined by tourism vehicle for hire drivers to slow down traffic entering the market. The Interior Minister has called on Yellow Vest protesters to stop demonstrating, citing safety on roads.
Last week we started to evacuate some roundabouts. We will continue doing so. You know, there was an 8th dead on Saturday. It was in Avignon, a young man, a 23-year-old Yellow Vest. The day before that, there was a young woman in an accident who was driving up to a roundabout, which was being occupied with no warning ahead of it. So she died. 8 deaths. I don't know of any social unrest in the past 30 years, which has killed so many people. So I say it loud and clear, enough is enough. For the safety of Yellow Vest protesters themselves, it's enough for the security of the French, and it's enough for the safety of our security forces.
The leader of the British Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, has said his party has tabled a vote of no confidence in Conservative Prime Minister Theresa May. Corbyn says he made the move because May failed to hold a meaningful Brexit vote as promised.
This is unacceptable in any way whatsoever. So, Mr. Speaker, as the only way I can think of ensuring a vote takes place this week, I am about to table a motion which says the following: that this House has no confidence in the Prime Minister due to her failure to allow the House of Commons to have a meaningful vote straight away on the withdrawal agreement and framework for future relationships between the UK and the European Union. And that will be tabled immediately, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank the Leader of the Opposition for what he's said.
And earlier, Prime Minister Theresa May announced that the parliamentary vote on Brexit will take place on the weekend, January 14th. May has also discarded a second referendum. She says that another vote on Brexit would create divisions and make citizens lose faith in politics. The Prime Minister postponed the vote on Brexit in Parliament last week as she couldn't secure a majority.
That I think that a general election at this point in time would not be.
A zoo in the UK has launched a list of its top 10 newborns from 2018. In a video, the Chester City Zoo features critically endangered species such as western chimpanzee Stevie, the UK's first ever sun bear cub, and a clutch of rare babies forest dragons. The zoo lost a number of exotic animals after a fire broke out last Saturday. And with the arrival of the holidays in Catalonia, the famous and powerful are being depicted in a uniquely Catalan way. Hand-painted statues with their pants down can be found hidden within traditional nativity scenes. Whilst any known figure can be depicted, a special place is reserved for politicians.
We have about 50 new figures. Among the imprisoned pro-independence Catalan leaders, the symbolic yellow ribbon in support of pro-independence jailed leaders, and international figures such as the British Prime Minister Theresa May. We also continue making other political figures that are always present, like Merkel, Macron, Trump, and President Puigdemont.
And finally, India is celebrating a two-day festival to honor the man's best friend. Indians are bringing their dogs and other pets to this festival in New Delhi. This is India's biggest pet festival where puppies could find a place to make friends and enjoy their time outside. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.